Hello, everyone. Hi, Karri.
Hey, Robin.
Welcome. Happy Friday. We made it. We are here, as Spencer said, to talk about B2B social, in particular with a focus on LinkedIn today. And Karri and I know are really excited to dive into this topic, something that a lot of people are thinking about. We know now LinkedIn has over a billion members and 67 million companies and counting. So it's obviously a target rich environment when you think about the B2B landscape. And Karri, a lot of B2B marketers are unsure about how to prioritize or leverage their social today. And when they're asked about what their current plan is, they're talking about doubling down on LinkedIn. But 95% of LinkedIn users saw decreased reach, engagement, and follower growth in 2023. So that feels a little scary because we're not sure what works anymore. So, a couple things. One, you're not alone if you're panicking a little bit about how your content is performing on LinkedIn. But Karri, can you talk to us about what does it mean to double down on LinkedIn? And is it even still a good idea considering what we saw in 2023?
Yeah, I think a little bit the funny slash scary thing about that 95% stat is like that's for LinkedIn. That's for the safe platform. That's for the one that's not controversial. That's for the one that's not trying to chase the latest, funding or algorithm or cool factor. That's good old LinkedIn. So like you said, you're not, we're not here to gaslight anyone. If you feel like what you've been doing doesn't work as well as it used to, you're not imagining that's an actual thing that's happening. And so when people say, hey, I want to double down on LinkedIn, is that a good idea? My answer is it depends. Like the short answer is yes, that is a viable strategy. And we'll talk today about a lot of reasons why that can be the case. But what I suspect a lot of people mean when they say that is, I'm just going to do more of the things on LinkedIn that have stopped working as well as they did in the past. And that's not a great strategy. Just doing more of the thing that isn't working is not going to change your trajectory. So, on the organic side, should you post more? For most people and most brands, probably. But I think it really comes down to thinking about what are you posting. For a lot of our clients, they're B2B organizations, and the temptation is to go, well, if 2 webinar promotion posts were good, then 4 will be better, and not necessarily. When we look at across the entire client set, about every 6 months, I'll look at this and just go, show me the top 100 most engaged posts from all of our clients. And usually 97 to 98 out of 100 of those posts are pictures of the team. And they're not like staged pictures of the team. They're not even sometimes very good pictures of the team, to be quite honest.
Right.
They
Totally
are
candid. Some employee took a snap, right?
those. It's everything. It's from, hey, look, we had a milestone and we had this cool lunch at the office, or a bunch of people got together for an offsite or a community activity, or here's 3 people standing awkwardly in front of our booth at this event. Like, the photo itself doesn't have to be profound or amazing. It's just so clear from the data that we see that the posts that actually get people to engage, and thinking about it, the posts that LinkedIn knows what to do with and knows who to show it to, who's likely to engage, are going to be these pictures of people. And so we just see the data back that up. And then, you kind of go from that and say, well, I can't make my entire strategy to post pictures of my team. On the one hand, I go, can't you? But I'm, taking into practical consideration, it also works with the algorithm itself. So if you, Robin, see a post from Leadtail team, you and I have known each other for a long time, you see that come across your feed, the odds that you're going to react to that are pretty high. You're going to be like, oh, there's the Leadtail team. Look at them out and about. The next time you come back to LinkedIn, and for the next, 30 days or so, LinkedIn's going to go, oh, Robin likes Leadtail's content. Let me show her some other content. Let me show her some other content from LinkedIn or from Leadtail. So, you want to use these special days, pictures of the team, the things that really are engagement oriented to get people sort of into the loop. and then let LinkedIn do the job of surfacing your other content that it thinks that person would find interesting. And if they keep engaging with your content, they'll keep seeing it. And if they don't, then it'll drop out and they'll stop seeing it in their feed, and you kind of start the cycle over.
Right. And as we talk about sort of those organic posts, organic content, just some ideas around the kind of organic posts, because like you said, you want it
Mhm.
varied, right? You don't want to just put the pictures of the employees, but we've got evergreen content, thought leadership, industry specific content, the personal storytelling we're seeing arise and how powerful that can be. And that can be sort of the employee advocacy stuff. It could be the team photos of someone's personal experience and what's happening at their company, or like the unique value proposition, the offering kind of thing. So as we think about the kind of organic content to post,
Mhm.
what's sort of performing best?
Yeah, it's going to be, a lot of those sort of just photos and multi-photo posts from an engagement standpoint, which is really what we look at in terms of what is the best, is what is driving engagement. Because you could get something that gets a ton of reach, but if a ton of people see it and nobody engages with it, nobody shows any signal that they liked it, appreciated it, found it insightful, who cares, really?
Right.
How are you going to ever do anything with that? So when we think about the posts and the kinds of content that we see that's most engaging, like I said, those special holidays, National Take Your Dog to Work Day, like you may go, that has nothing to do with my business. And it probably doesn't unless your job is something to do with dogs. But putting that post together, one, mobilizes your employees, gives them some skin in the game in terms of the success of your social, gives them a post that they're more likely to share to their own network. And, again, just works well with the algorithm in terms of LinkedIn knowing who to put that post in front of to drive engagement. But that other piece, the algorithmic piece that says, every time that person comes back to LinkedIn after that day where they liked your National Dogs Day post, you know, what other content do you have there? And so to your point, we see executive bylines. We see if a company has a podcast series. I would sort of go down the hierarchy from kind of the most human centric to the least human centric. And the more out in front the people element is, odds are the better that content is going to perform. So that makes me start thinking about things like, if you've got a newsletter, just posting, our latest newsletter is out, subscribe here. Um, that's one way to do it. But another way to do it would be have someone from the team, do one of these, do a LinkedIn Live and say, hey, I just want to run through the headlines that are in this week's newsletter. I can almost guarantee that you're going to see better engagement with that post. That's a person talking about the newsletter. And ultimately, you're going to see more engagement with the newsletter itself by taking just a different angle on how you're posting.
Um, on the topic of engagement, what we're seeing now is one, going viral doesn't actually help you. It used to be like you just wanted this post that went viral, but that's actually the way the algorithm has changed, has
Mhm.
actually made that not a great thing for you. And then two, it used to be like, how many likes can I get? How many reactions can I get? Right? It was these vanity metrics. But what we're seeing now is that comments are king, right?
Mhm.
So comments can boost a post reach by up to 15 times more than a like or a reaction. And they're 5 times more effective than sharing somebody else's post.
Mm.
So it's now about the comment, right? It's not just about the like. So to your point, they have to be really human centric because we want to elicit some kind
Mhm.
of response. And from what we're seeing, longer comments of 15 words or more are showing the algorithm that this is really something that's generating in-depth insights, real communication, different points of view. It's inciting actual conversation. So engagement's looking a little bit different today too.
Absolutely. And that's also a challenge because, for the last several years, brand social was sort of acting in the person of the brand. And nobody really wants a brand to join their conversation. Despite a decade of saying, join the conversation, nobody
Right.
really wants your brand to join the conversation. And so, you really have to look at it and strategically say, well, if I need to be engaging in actual conversations with other people, I'm going to need actual people from my team to be doing that. And so you start to think about it differently and maybe angling more towards, rethinking your employee advocacy program. Maybe again, and I'm just going to beat up on webinar posts because they are the bread and butter of B2B marketing, but, just shoving the same webinar post with the date, time, and, registration link into your employee advocacy system and getting more people to share the same poorly performing post is not the kind of double down we're looking for here.
Right.
So the double down that I would say is, so do that webinar post with the details, dates, times, places, speakers, etc., on the company page, and then look at the, notify employees button to let employees know that they can share that post and add their own spin to it. That's going to both help get it into the networks of other people who maybe aren't already in the loop on your company and give them a reason to care about it. Company A that I've never heard of that crosses my radar, I have no reason to care or even notice unless they go, your friend Robin works here. And then I'm like, oh, okay, well, what are they doing? Maybe that is interesting to me.
Right.
So just again, it's going to keep coming back to this touchstone of start with something anchored around humanity, something anchored around people, something that showcases who's at work at your company, what they're doing, your team out in the community. All of those angles are going to be better and more effective than your sort of typical traditional social posts.
Right. And even coming back to that engagement aspect of the comments, empowering your employees and other people on your team to actually participate in the comments. And
Mhm.
the other key factor here is we used to have, all the systems to just sort of set it and forget it. Like that post is going
Mhm.
out that day, that post is going out that day. Now we actually have to be really intentional and consistent because you need to reply to the comments. That you
Mm,
need to actually like and even in those comments elicit a little bit more, right?
yeah,
So can you share
yeah.
some examples of how that works to kind of get like fuel that conversation and get people to kind of continue to engage?
Yeah, I mean, if you are able to actually get some conversation going, and again, I'm always thinking about this really coming from the perspective of a brand's posts, and then how does that sort of get, how does that play in this environment? So if you're able to actually get something going and you've got some comments and they're in dialogue essentially, just going through and going, thanks, 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 thanks. You're not really adding anything to that conversation, and the sort of technology, the algorithm that sits behind that is kind of smart enough to recognize that difference. And so, on the whole, like the change that we have to wrap our head around with LinkedIn is that in the past, the primary considerations were, what is this content and which account is it from and who are they connected to? And LinkedIn has really sort of shifted off that model and is looking at, you know, who is this entity behind this post? And it does that by looking across the posts that you've been making, across the comments you've been leaving, across any articles you've contributed to LinkedIn Pulse. So they're really looking at who are you in total in all of your
Mm.
interactions on the platform. And I don't know, honestly, whether they apply the exact same algorithm to brands as they do to individuals, but in general, the play here is to start from that human element and then just think about how can I humanize this post? If I'm about to do a post and it's got kind of a stock image and a couple lines of text and a link and maybe a couple of hashtags, is there some way I can inject some kind of human element into this, some kind of signal to LinkedIn that this is from a real person, that there's people involved here? And so to
Right.
your point, comments coming through and actually saying thank you and then asking a follow-up question. Was there something in particular you found insightful about this ebook, article, event? Or will we see you at the next one if it's a post about, an event that just happened or something in a series? So just rethinking in total, what does it mean to double down on LinkedIn? It's not just more posting. And then
Mhm.
saying, well, if it's more commenting, then I've got to be able to do more finding the right conversations. I need to know who on the team I can tap to say, hey, Robin, I think this would be a great conversation for you to join. And so maybe
Mm.
it's, refamiliarizing yourself with the expertise in your own organization and finding out, who's comfortable jumping into those conversations and making sure that they're kind of teed up with the right guidelines that you want them to follow.
And maybe even considering a shift in your call to action, right? So many
Mm,
times our call to action is like buy our product or, click here, sign up for the webinar. But
mm,
maybe since that information's already there, it's now like comment below with what you'd like to hear us talk about, or how would this solve your problem? Or are you suffering with this pain point? How's that
right.
affecting your day? Right. So shifting your call to action even
Mhm.
to insight comments, because that's going to make that post show up for more people who aren't necessarily following you or connecting with you.
Yeah, I think that that's true. And the other piece here is that again, I don't want to limit this idea of doubling down on LinkedIn to just posting more or just
Right.
advertising more. I'll talk for just a moment about sort of if double down on LinkedIn means in your mind spend more money on advertising. We work with clients that are all the way from seed through public company. And so we've seen a variety of different approaches to paid on LinkedIn, different budgets. And just as a quick takeaway on that, the thing that we have found is if you have a little bit of money to spend, so let's call a little bit $10,000 a month or less, you kind of have to be running an always on campaign at that level for a long period of time to get things dialed in on your audience and start getting it performing at a sort of steady state. If you have a lot of money, you can run a lot of different campaigns. You can turn them on and off. Surprise in advertising. If you have a bigger budget, you have more options. But unfortunately, what we see and what the real sort of worst way to split the difference is if you have some money every once in a while. So if you have $25,000 and you want to run a campaign now, but then if it doesn't immediately give you the number of leads you're looking for, you're going to pull that money back and then not do it for 2 quarters and then come back and do it again. That's the worst of all worlds. You're going to spend more money, you're going to get fewer results, and you're not going to build up any algorithmic, benefits. You're not going to build up any secondary audience you can retarget. You're not going to build up any consistent awareness or touch points with that same audience over time that can really bring them into taking the next step with your brand. So thinking about not just paid and not just organic, but maybe we can talk a little bit about some of the other things that folks could explore on LinkedIn beyond those.
Yeah. So just a quick takeaway is that even with a small budget, if you are consistent, you can still see
Mm,
results with some paid posting, right? Especially with a mix
very,
of paid and organic. But yeah,
very
let's talk about the other aspects of LinkedIn people should consider in addition to just posting more organically and then or trying to get more budget. What are
yeah.
some other things they can do to, sort of expand their footprint on LinkedIn and how they're working there?
Sure. I mean, one of the things is very much what we're doing right here, is using a combination of LinkedIn events and LinkedIn Live. This is a sort of a recipe or a play that we think has a lot of potential and that we just don't see a lot of companies doing effectively. I have been watching sort of companies use LinkedIn events over the last couple of years, and I've come to the conclusion that with a little creativity, anything can be an event. Your webinar can be an event, your LinkedIn Live series can be an event, your fundraising can be an event. I've actually seen larger enterprise companies, I think it was Snowflake at the time, do their quarterly campaign as an event in LinkedIn.
Wow.
Excuse me. So as a way to kind of pipeline specific messaging around a product launch, a campaign to a set of people who have opted in by RSVPing to this event, they're creating essentially a dedicated communication pipeline
Right.
about this campaign. So again, little creativity, thinking about what an event might be. But the real benefit there is that since it's built into the platform, it allows your sales team and your executive team who have large networks to invite people out of their network to the event. And you sort of avoid the black hole of being in their inbox. You avoid the whole sort of, do I have permission to send them email kind of situation? You just use the platform and use the features that are provided. So that network effect really helps. Yes, you're going to pick up some folks who RSVP, yes, not because they actually intend to show up, but because they're kind of giving you some signal that says, like, yeah, good, cool. I like that. I like you. I like what you're doing. And so you kind of, if you think about it with a broad mindset, you can get a lot of signal back from executing this sort of outreach for an event via the LinkedIn platform itself. I
Right.
think it's the kind of thing that's ripe for folks to test out.
I know I'm certainly guilty of saying I'm coming to a webinar or an event because I want to, because I know I'm going to get the recording later and I'll be able to watch it asynchronously. I get right, but I'll still
Absolutely.
be in the loop. I know I'm going to get on their email list. I'm going to get the recap, right? When we're following up with all those things. So, like, even though I'm not going to be there, sometimes I'll say yes because I am interested, which again, as you were saying, that's a signal, right? It shows who your advocates are, who your fans are, who's potentially interested. And that's all information you can bring back to your sales org, your marketing team, right?
Exactly. And it's again, it's strengthening LinkedIn. One of the features of LinkedIn that I just frankly don't see with any of the other social platforms is for every little bit of work and effort and information you put into LinkedIn, they really do try to lever that into returning some benefit to you. And so, using that sort of event to LinkedIn Live scenario, if I have the sales folks reach out to their networks via LinkedIn, all that signal that I'm getting as a marketer that says, okay, here are all the people who said yes. Here are people who took the time to say no. Also good to know. Like, did you see it and decide you didn't want to come? Maybe I need to change the subject. Maybe I need to change the date and time, or all these people said yes, but only a third of them came. Okay, so something about this was appealing, but maybe this form factor wasn't it. So let's make sure we get those people, a copy of the recording. And because it's not an email list, guess how they get a copy of the recording? The salesperson who invited them has an opportunity to reach out and say, saw that you RSVP but didn't make it. Here's the recording. Here's a few things I would recommend you check out. Love to, if you have any questions, let me know. And just
Right.
think about how differently that hits than like, hi, Robin, I see that we share some connections. Let's connect. And as soon as I say yes, you're like, would you like to book a demo? But would you like to book a demo? So just taking a moment to think through the whole series of events that go into executing a campaign like that starts to make that LinkedIn event to LinkedIn Live playbook really work.
And you brought up another good point is that you're really creating more touch point opportunities for sales. But also, I think sometimes we think about our audience for lives or events as just like prospects.
Mhm.
But we have existing customers that we could also, right? So there are other parts of the
Yeah.
organization that can also be affected by these things, right? That can also use these as an opportunity to deepen customer relationships.
That's right. I mean, there's nothing that says your product marketing team couldn't put on a LinkedIn Live for your new major release. If you do a sort of a spring release and a fall release, like rather than send me an email with 36 bullets, or better yet, in addition, because maybe I get my info about this product or company from email. Maybe I get it from LinkedIn. Maybe I get it from the salesperson who calls me every quarter to see if I want a demo now, whatever it is. But yeah, I think you really do have, again, if you just think about it beyond what is the thing that I'm creating and then posting to the platform and then walking away, it's like play that movie forward. Like what happens then on the platform and what can I learn from that? And then what can I do having learned that? And you really start to go, okay, I don't have to do 30 of these to figure this out.
Right.
I'm going to do 2 or 3 of these sort of, and then feel out what's working, what isn't, and decide if I want to keep going, if I need to mix it up, if I need to do multiple different series, or I need to just do every Friday at 9 a.m. You're going to figure those pieces out pretty quickly. And again, you're picking up just all these other sort of tangential insights about your audience along the way.
Um, LinkedIn Live events often have a video component. Can you talk to us just about video a little bit? Because we know we keep hearing video is so important, video is so important. It obviously helps with
Mhm.
that human element. You see a real person, it's not AI writing some kind of post, right? So
Right.
talk about video and the power of
Sure.
that, how to approach it. It seems intimidating, it seems expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I am certainly I have been guilty of this in the past as well. Like, let me just be fully transparent about that, which is, I am a very online person. And so my level of taste, a good example is, when we started our podcast here at Leadtail for the very first time, none of us having any podcast experience, like My bar was, how close can we make this to This American Life?
Right. Right.
How closely can we make
Yeah.
our B2B podcast
Right.
compare to the award-winning program that has been on air for 20 years and is run by absolute audio professionals and a generationally talented storyteller? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
not the right bar, right? This is like, and then I lowered my expectations to, well, how can we make it like Pod Save America? It was like, oh, okay, only the most popular political, like, yeah, still in the wrong sort of level of the atmosphere. And so I think number one is just understanding that if you're not already doing video and your team isn't, you don't have an expert on staff and you're not used to doing it, that is okay. Because when you start doing it, there is just an inevitable period where you're going to be not very good at it. And kind of the more at bats you can get more quickly, like the more you can iterate quickly and try it again and again and again, then the sort of, Pareto principle kicks in, the 80-20 rule. You're going to fix 80% of your problems in the first 20% of times you do it. So like, just get to doing it. And this is another really low stakes way to do that. I mean, I think, I think we're set up here in a way that we can have this conversation. We're creating some video content, but I'm not overly stressed about, this weird virtual background of a house that I wouldn't really live in. Like, we're going to get this done. We're going to deliver the information. I think the information's valuable. And so people will take that away. They're not going to walk away thinking like, wow, does Karri really have a grand piano? I do not. So
No,
get over the threshold that somehow your first, second, third, or 20th video is going to look like a professionally produced process. It's not, and it doesn't have to. Right now, we're really talking again about B2B, which is like, what is the information that everybody wants and nobody has that you have?
right.
Get on a video and share that. And that could be what it's like to work on your team. That could be what it's like to sell into and service a particular audience. It could be any number of things. But the real underlying thing is just get in there and start doing it. It does not have to be incredibly polished at all.
Yeah. I remember hearing, this is an ever popular phrase in Silicon Valley that done is better than perfect. And I'm like, no, nothing's better than perfect. But the reality
like, have you ever had perfection?
yeah. But the reality is you just have to start. And I remember we did a series at a company I was at where we did kind of like an employee interview series. It was called Rapid Fire Friday. We interviewed an employee. We gave them, 15 seconds to answer questions about themselves. I look back at those early ones and I was like, oh, cringe. Like, should we take them off the website and our YouTube channel? They were just, the production was bad. But you know what? People loved them and it was so authentic. And the thing we have to remember is look at the rise in popularity of TikTok, of Instagram. We're getting these super low budget teenagers delivering quick, highly dense video content, in their pajamas with bad lighting. And it gets engagement. People are commenting. So I think back to your earlier point about bringing the human aspect in, that is like low video production actually sometimes helps with the low, the human aspect. And you have to remember that even though we're B2B marketers, we're still marketing to human beings who, by the way, are on other social media channels and are totally used to this kind of behavior. We don't necessarily go to work and like turn off our humanity and now we're professional. Like, right? We're still like, we just want the content. You want the value. You want the humanity behind it.
Yeah, that little I can't overstate how much better even very middling content can be by presenting it through a human being. And, I can literally watch TikTok videos of people telling me about their, B2B sales strategy while they put on makeup. I mean, like, these are not people who are like lights, camera, action. It can, if you've got the info and it's valuable to the audience, the sort of form factor, the formatting, whether you go through and sort of remove the millennial pause from all of your videos, all of those things are not really as important as you think they are coming out of the gate. Or perhaps maybe if you're not a perfectionist like I am,
Yeah.
maybe you're
Yeah.
already cool with those things. But if you find yourself hesitant, I think what you said is, to me, like, that's kind of my shorthand, is like, you should look back at the videos you were making 2, 3 months ago and be like, oh,
Right.
and you're going to
Right.
realize how much better you've gotten. And, you don't have to commit to a series forever. I'm a fan of launching something as a limited series, specifically for the purpose of being able to deep six it later when you've replaced it with better content. You can just be like,
Right.
the lost season, goodbye.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Man, we
that's
touched on more. I can see the comments lighting up. Authenticity is everything. I like Timothy posted, as I heard someone once say, you don't have to do it justice, you just have to do it. Love,
that's right.
I love that, right? And yeah, Carter called out what B2B marketers have been taught over the last 20 years has turned completely upside down. Authentic beats brand voice, right? The
Yeah.
authenticity, the human element, bring your brand values to it, bring the essence of who you are, bring the integrity of your brand, know your framework. Being authentic is paramount to anything else, right?
It really is. I mean, if we netted out the, do more comments and share more pictures of people, and it is all some way of trying to articulate ways to be authentic, ways to remove the filters, the artifice, the, weird, stilted professional enterprise speak that sits between you and actually connecting with these other humans that you call, in aggregate, your audience. It is really, and I would say, getting a little on the woo-woo side here, like, to the extent that you can start to talk within your own company and team about the people you want to sell to, the
Yeah.
customers you want to have, instead of your target audience,
Yes.
your ICP. Like, if you use dehumanizing language, you are probably carrying that through to
That's
a,
a good
a,
point.
a standard of how you're talking to those people
Right.
that dehumanizes them, that
Right.
devalues your unique perspective and theirs. So, yeah, I think that video is just the shortest path, the hardest one to fake. You can't help but see who people really are.
Yeah. And there are people who are like, I don't know what kind of video content I'm going to produce. I don't know what I'm going to say on video, what kind of, but you called out something really
Mm.
brilliant, which was like, you've got an employee newsletter that's text, take it to video, like read out your headlines, right? So thinking about what we've done in text content, how you can just
Mhm.
bring that to video, right? Like,
Absolutely. I mean, and I realize that that's a big lift. I mean, folks may be, um, folks may be a team of one. They may be solopreneurs. They may have a small team. They may be the only marketer at their company, or they may have a big team. It all kind of depends. But I don't want to make it seem like, well, if you can't do video, then just give up, because that's not true. I mean, Carter's got a good comment in there as well. It says, not saying everything has to be video, but also everything can't be text. Like, at this
right.
point, that's
Yeah,
just not
it's that blend.
realistic.
Yeah, we did have a question from one of our audience members about how do solopreneurs tap into the human aspect, but video is a really great way, and it doesn't have to be anything specific, like a video series. It can be like, hey, I'm heading into work, and here are my 3 objectives for the day, right? Those,
Mhm.
or man, I had a big setback with funding this week and it's been super challenging, but I've got these meetings ahead and I'm really excited. Or maybe after the fact, it's like,
Yeah.
getting started was really tough. Telling your founder story, telling your customers stories, like, hey, I'm here with a customer today, and we're just talking about how we're solving these big pain points. Like, those really human first, your personal story about your journey, like your
Mhm.
customers' stories about all of that can be both text content and video content. And it's even better, as you mentioned, as Carter pointed out, maybe you have a version of both.
That's right. To the extent that you can kind of think about content a little in the abstract, and think about delivering it in different ways. I think that's probably a good point of leverage, particularly for someone, again, in the context of being a sort of solopreneur where you are everything, you are the CEO to the janitor, right? Is like, okay, well, how do you make content from the things you're already doing? Hop on a video, hop on your webcam, talk to your iPhone about the customer visit you just had, or and this is the
Yeah.
third time this week that I've heard this thing from the folks that I've been paying, sales calls to. And, I just hate to see these people suffering needlessly when solutions, I mean, just
Yes,
talk about
calling
your
out the
experience.
trends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so, even though people are getting more comfortable with video, are there any recommendations you have for things that could be like a little lighter lift to get going
yeah.
while we continue to build out our video practice?
That's right. Well, you continue to poke your team with sticks and get them to do more video. There's two things in particular that I think are powerful levers within the LinkedIn platform that are still fairly underutilized. The first is LinkedIn newsletters. So from your company page, you can create multiple newsletters if you want. We have found this to be a really great way to, one, create a more durable connection with your newsletter subscribers. This is just my rant about email and part of, why more than a decade ago, I sort of took the path and said, I think social's where it's at because, you get a new job, B2B marketing historically has been about get that email address. I mean, it's great. I get your email address while you work at company A. We're marketers. So 2 years later, you're not at company A anymore. You're over here at company B. And I've got a dead newsletter subscriber. Like my list is just going to pot over here. You're not going to change your LinkedIn profile. You're not going to go disconnect from companies that you're following. So that is just a longer, durable connection. And what we see is, you probably already have a newsletter. You can replicate it over. It doesn't have to be brand new exclusive content. And it's a pretty lightweight, editor to get those newsletters created. So like thinking about the amount of effort required for the amount of return available on that. And again, LinkedIn getting those signals about who is reading it, who's subscribing, who's clicking through, and that helping your overall LinkedIn performance. I think that one's a no-brainer. If you're not doing a newsletter, I would say, that's the first thing you should do. If you're not doing it, start there. The other thing is employee advocacy. And again, that has a range of ways that one could implement that. From an internal Slack channel or email that periodically says, hey, here's some stuff we've shared lately, really great if you could pass this on to your network, to using that notify employees button within the LinkedIn company page. And also, there's a newer area on a LinkedIn company page that shows you posts that employees have made tagging the company. So resharing some of those. All the way to, buying an enterprise employee advocacy platform, that would, that can be a whole sort of more involved and elaborate set of tools that do some social media advocacy, but also handle, internal comms or all kinds of other things.
Yeah, employee advocacy has a special place in my heart. But I will say, as a PR leader, as a communication leader, it was terrifying for me at first. I was like, no, no, no. We have designated speakers who are authorized to speak on behalf of the company. You can't just democratize this stuff and let anybody say what they want. But the reality is, if we're not trusting the people we hired to talk about our company, we're not hiring well and we're not teaching and training well. So I think there's a bit of a shift where marketers, PR practitioners are now, they have another audience to concern themselves with, which is their internal audience. Because the more we can empower those people, particularly on LinkedIn, the
Yeah.
more our content will be seen, will be shared, our company will be visible. They're an asset.
Yeah.
And they bring unique perspectives and diverse voices to, expand our reach into different communities, to highlight and elevate different parts of our company, different pain points, bringing different perspectives. But it can be scary at first. And the other thing to think about is not everyone is going to participate in your employee advocacy program. The people who are the most passionate and the most excited are, and that is contagious anyway.
That's true. I mean, and that goes all the way to just the behavior of your organization, and what do you reward and what do you incentivize, and back to that trust factor. So I think relative to a video first content strategy, employee advocacy seems like a lighter lift to me. But you just flagged a couple things, a couple of speed bumps that people might encounter. Like an internal comms person coming and going, no,
Right.
no, and maybe how to have that conversation. Like, hey, we got to trust these folks. If we don't think they know what to do, maybe we need to get them some training. Maybe we need to publish some guidelines. Maybe we need to have those people who are already doing it well and really say to folks, this is what we're looking for, and how we will encourage, reward, and acknowledge more people doing this. So, that you got to, your own organization and sort of what your lowest hanging fruit is for you. But I definitely think newsletters and employee advocacy are pretty top of that list.
Yeah. The reality is that with social media's significant presence in our life, we're not controlling the narrative the way we used to anyway. It's not like only us little select group of marketers and PR practitioners are controlling the narrative. And the executives say exactly what we want them to say, and everything is pre-vetted. Like, that's just not today's reality. So you might as well empower them, teach them
Mhm.
about the algorithm, teach them to build their own personal brand too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and letting people know not why you should do it for the company, but why you should do it for yourself. How this is going to help you be more valuable in your career, and be a more sought after subject matter expert, help you get those bylines, help you get those speaking spots, help you be recognized within the open source community, like whatever your objective is or whatever the different employee objectives are. Helping folks connect a few of those dots to encourage them to get started. And like you said, 100% of people are never going to do this. Like, you're never going to get 100% participation. And so, you might as well go like, let me take the hand raisers and give them all the resources I can, rather than go chase the people who are clearly signaling like, this is not for me. I don't want to do this.
Which ultimately
Mhm.
support your LinkedIn efforts anyway, because it's giving your brand more visibility and, more important, more credibility.
That's
And
right.
it's bringing that human element into, because you're really servicing the human element of your organization. So it's helping you accomplish all the goals that you wanted to when you decided to double down on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah. And, I think in the last, couple minutes that we have, I just want to talk a little bit, like we've spoken about different ways that you can double down on LinkedIn. And I see that there's some comments and hopefully some questions here. So we'll leave that time. But I just want to talk briefly about how doubling down on LinkedIn doesn't close off the pathways to being on other networks as
Mm.
well. All these things that we're talking about using LinkedIn to do, I almost think about it like, okay, LinkedIn is like the rallying point, to just kind of bring all of your disparate, like if you just cannot maintain or sustain all the different social you used to have going amongst all of the different platform changes, like bringing it home and going like, let's just nail what we're doing on LinkedIn for 2 quarters. And then we can kind of think about LinkedIn as our sort of hub, and then use these other social platforms in ways where I'm repurposing things that I've built for LinkedIn. This video that we're doing here today as a LinkedIn Live, it's going to have a YouTube video that's going to go up on the Leadtail YouTube channel sometime next week. We're going to take the conversation we've had here, then parse out some of the key points, grab some links from where we got our different stats that we talked about, and put that together as a blog post. I can put the blog on the website. It can go in my LinkedIn newsletter, but then I could also get back on and do a video and say, hey, in case you missed Robin and I having this conversation, we put all the key findings in this newsletter. You should really subscribe. Just thinking about how to like keep bringing it back in on itself, and then also how to take those pieces of video content, or how to take that text content and turn it into maybe a graphic and put it out on, different social networks. So if we talked about this a little bit in prep, like I am newly reinvigorated around Pinterest,
Right.
and I love it. And so I'm thinking a lot now about like, well, why does Pinterest work? How can we do more graphic orientated content, making that sort of fit the model. It's not going to work for every business, but we shouldn't out of hand just go, well, this platform is not for us and this one is. There are a lot of bleeding over dynamics that we're going to see. A lot of things that are sort of born on TikTok make their way onto LinkedIn. People want to say that that's not the case, but I hate to tell you that it is. It's coming. And so, having an eye on what's going on those other platforms and going, oh, I see how this thing we did here could go over there, and then point back to LinkedIn for the full video or for the longer article or to connect with the author. Now I'm starting to do some things with my marketing that are like strengthening my LinkedIn presence, maintaining a presence on some of these other networks, and then using the socials, to sort of move people back and forth. If I tell someone, hey, come and check out my LinkedIn page for the full article, I don't necessarily have to put the link in there. And so because people know what LinkedIn is and it's not their first day on the internet.
Right.
So they can go, oh, Karri Carlson said to go find this article on her LinkedIn page. I will go to the linkedin.com and search for Karri and find her page. I don't have to include that link per se. So anyway, all that's just to say that we've talked a lot today about the notion of doubling down on LinkedIn and what that might look like, but it doesn't in any way mean that you have to ignore or cut off the pathways to and from those other social networks.
Right. In fact, maybe LinkedIn is your hub, and you're putting all that stuff, driving people back there, but still generating that interest, right? So it all works together.
Absolutely.
And I think to your point about how, we really are learning from TikTok, and the things that happen there start to happen on Instagram, and then they eventually seem to happen on LinkedIn. In particular, the comments we've seen for a long time now on Instagram, they'll say, comment below for, with your favorite California destination, and I'll send you my 10-point travel checklist, or comment outfit of the day and I'll send you the details in your DM. They were already getting people to comment to boost engagement and get away from those just vanity metrics of likes and followers. And now we're seeing how important that is on LinkedIn, right? So we watch the bleed over from each of those networks. So it is important to stay there and keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening, because eventually it often seems that what works really well on other platforms eventually comes to your B2B network on LinkedIn.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to grab just one last question, I think, out of the feed here, and then we can roll into sort of any other questions that folks have. So if you've been sitting on your brilliant question, now's the time to sort of get that in the feed, and Spencer will get it to Robin and me. But I'm going to grab Carter's question here about playing to the algorithm versus just focusing on engaging your buyers and community. And so, saying be authentic and be your real self and be human is kind of the new, be a storyteller. It's okay, that sounds great, but what does that actually mean? Show me the steps to doing this thing. Whereas, the algorithm is oh, I read this article and it said if you type XYZ into the first comment within 5 minutes on a Saturday, that you stop with that. Stop with the slot machine. Stop with that. It's over. You are not invited to the party where they make the algorithm and decide how it works. So you might as well just be informed, let it do its work behind you as much as possible. Try to put the wind at your back. But the best strategy always, the only thing the algorithm is trying to do is filter out the garbage. That's what it's trying to do for you. It's trying to help. But if you play solely to some narrow advantage or growth hack against the algorithm, as soon as they change the algorithm, that doesn't work anymore. How many times a year can you go back and rethink your whole strategy? Growth hacking and following these temporary advantages, it just is not a sustainable way to do things. What is always in fashion and what is always rewarded is, again, do you know something? Do you have expertise about something that other people value and need and don't have? Put that information out there. Let people know you've got it. Let people know you want to share it. Let people know you're selling it, whatever it is. Get yourself, and again, it's, the video just sort of cuts through the artifice. So to me, that's the shortest path, but it really is what is the thing you have to say that is valuable, and just focus on that. Like, it's okay for your content to be for some people and not for other people.
In fact, it's
If nothing
ideal,
else,
right?
that's right. I mean, that's been the problem all along, is that
Yeah.
social has made it feel like, well, more is better, period. And it isn't. Like, if you sent 10,000 leads to your sales team, they would be swamped. And all 10,000 of those people are not real leads. So getting 20 people who genuinely have an interest and will take the meeting is far better, even though we would all curdle as marketers to be like, well, I know I said this was going to get 10,000 leads, but it got 20. Well, if 18 of those 20 turn into deals in the next year, you're going to look like a freaking genius.
Right.
Versus sending the sales team off on a wild goose chase to forever dial people who have no interest in talking to them. So
Right.
it is very much about, the better you can just let people know what you're about, and that if they're about that too, this is where to find you. This is how to get that info. I think regardless of platform, that's going to be the best advice.
Love that.
Cool.
Well, we have about 10 minutes left. Do you want to jump into some of these questions that we've got?
Yeah, you want to grab some?
Yeah.
Here?
Well, I mean, I did talk earlier about like how do the solopreneurs tap into the human aspect. We talked about that one a bit. Was there anything else you wanted to add? Because so many of the things that a solopreneur can do is also applicable to anybody else, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, Carter's got a good comment in there as well, that, solopreneurs can focus on, shining the light on others in their
Yeah.
community, which, to your point, that's good advice for anyone. That's, if you're Coca-Cola, at this point in my life, I'm much more interested in like Coca-Cola Corporation spending their money to make a documentary film about, somebody's life that's interesting or novel or inspirational than I am just seeing more different pictures of Coca-Cola or
Right.
more different flavors of, beverages. Like, I know what it is. I don't care about that. So tell me about the people in your community. Tell me what you're doing with the money that you're taking from us that benefits people.
Yeah.
And then in a B2B context, it's, this is a little bit of a trick, but it's like, when you invite people to speak on your webinar, there's always this like, well, we need to get our CEO to talk. Like, there's still just a limited audience of people who know or care about what your CEO has to say.
Right.
Your job is you're trying to get more people to care about that. If they cared about it, we wouldn't have to be doing the webinar. So like, you want to think about pulling people in that can bring new audiences, can bring new eyes, can bring new perspectives. And so again, that shining the light on the community is like, invite someone, invite a person from one of your target accounts. Bonus, people will think they're your customer because they're on your webinar, but you don't have to claim that they are. You can just let people think that. And that will really drive your competitors crazy. But
Yeah. And
you can do this
like,
in a lot of different ways, but like
yeah.
grabbing folks out of the community, shining the light on them. That's what people find interesting, is other people and human stories. Talking about ourselves is pretty boring. And talking about products is mostly pretty boring.
Yes. And again, I think on that, like you focus on the problem you're solving and the sort of like, here's the experience of the person who has
Yeah.
this problem that's not yet solved, right?
Yeah.
Like
here's
taking
what
you
the
through
problem
day in
looks
the
like.
life of the person struggling with whatever your software offering will fix for them.
That's right.
We have a great question from Carmen. What's the best way to convert LinkedIn newsletter followers to owned email subscribers?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a great answer for that. I think one is just to put a note in your LinkedIn newsletter that says, prefer to get this in your inbox. But I am okay with, there being duplicative subscribers and, someone who's subscribed to the email version and then follows the page, and vice versa. So I think one is just tell each audience that the other option is available and let people choose the thing that is really the most favorable to them. The thing I like about why I favor the newsletter on LinkedIn is, again, the platform does some of the work for you. So it announces to your page follower base, that you've got a newsletter. So that's a great way to just sort of, wake up that audience and find out like who's really actually engaged, who actually cares. And we see, I want to say like 10 to 15% of the follower base in that first initial newsletter or two tend to join the subscriber list on LinkedIn. So if you've got 5,000 followers on your page, you can probably expect to pick up between, 500 and 700 of those folks as newsletter subscribers if you launch a LinkedIn newsletter.
Yeah,
Um,
like you said earlier, it's not necessarily critical to make them owned email subscribers specifically to your newsletter, but maybe your newsletter links to something else where you get their email address, right? They
yeah,
engaging you, they're sending you another signal that they're interested in receiving more information. So sometimes it's what you put in your newsletter,
good
like
point.
click here to learn more. They go to your website, they see something, they want to download an ebook or something. So it's really the content that you put in your newsletter is actually can be the effective part of getting that to become an owned email subscriber, right?
That's a great way to think about it.
Um, let's see. Oh, you answered Carter's question about playing to the algorithm and how important it is to focus on engaging your buyers and your community. Do you have anything else to add to that, or do you?
No, I mean, I think it's just, short, net is the more we make it about ourselves, nobody cares. The more we make it about other people, it has a chance to be interesting. It has a chance to resonate with people. It just, if at all possible, again, start with putting the spotlight on someone else. That just is going to set you up in the right frame for success, I think.
And then we had actually another question from Carter, which was, how can salespeople better leverage LinkedIn with social selling? As yeah, as tired of all the spam DMs and connecting requests, right? Yeah. It's a
Like I
great
said,
question. And
getting we seem to know some of the same people. Can I book some time with you next Tuesday for a demo is not working. So don't do that.
right.
Leveraging social selling, Carter and I actually, gosh, I don't even know. I've lost count of how many social selling trainings we've done for Leadtail clients in the last, year to 18 months. It's a lot. And, generally speaking, what we talk to teams about is one, getting their profiles in shape. So many people's profiles are still oriented towards recruiters and getting a job. And so, your sales folks in particular, like literally show me a CIO who's like, yeah, I'll take a call from an SDR. Like it's not going to happen.
Right.
So, just you're setting those folks up incorrectly. So, helping them create a profile that signals subject matter expert
Yeah.
is probably one of the first things you can do. And then I think the other pieces we talk about are helping them understand like you're there on a mission. Don't just scroll and kind of random walk through. Think about how am I going to find and create this sort of list, either in Sales Navigator or just, in my own sort of CRM of like who I'm there to engage. And how do I use the platform as a way to understand what they're about, understand where their attention is, what they care about. And then the third piece is just, again, giving some guidelines, some templates, some training of like what to say that isn't, do you want a demo? Because
Right.
even if the brand, even if you and me, so comms and marketing, we're knocking it out of the park. We're so authentic. It's amazing. The algorithm totally at our back. We are crushing it. And then I get a DM from a salesperson that's like, do you want to book a demo? Oh my God, they've let the air out of the whole thing that we've been building. So it
Right.
is really sort of those three pieces. Help them set up their profiles to signal expert, not sales. Help them understand who they're there to engage with, give them a job to do, and then provide them with support and all the way, like I said, to examples, templates, and the like for how to engage because they will have more engagement opportunities. And so you don't want to be careless and sort of blow those at the last minute after all that good work has gone in to bring us to that point.
Right. Well, that is a great place to end. I
Yeah,
think.
where did an hour go? This was
Yeah,
super quick.
it did go fast.
Cool.
Thank you for all of these great insights and tips. I think you're generating a lot of ideas. The creative juices are flowing. I think lots to take away from here. So yes, double down on LinkedIn. Don't ignore the other social networks. Stay consistent. You don't necessarily need a huge ad budget to be successful, but we want to be authentic. We want to be human. We want to be really consistent, and we want to be meaningfully engaging. So really trying to generate comments by engaging people in dialogue.
Absolutely. And I think just by way of housekeeping, we will, as I mentioned, we'll sort of tidy this video up and get it out on the Leadtail YouTube channel. I'm sure we'll also go through and create a blog that links out to some of those sources that we cited during the conversation. So in theory, you'll be able to watch us walk the walk and talk the talk here following this session. But I really appreciate everybody coming, and of course, Robin for being my partner in this conversation, and Spencer for keeping things on the rails behind the scenes. So
Yes. Thank you,
thanks,
everyone.
everybody. Have a great
Have a good
Friday.
day. Bye.
Bye.